to today's webinar. My name is Anna. I'm the Vice President of Marketing here at VuWall. I'm located in our Montreal headquarters, and joining me today is an incredible team of panelists. Thank you all so much for being here. I'm going to start with Chris Dreyfus, who's our guest speaker today, joining us from London. Chris, would you like to take a moment and introduce yourself?
Yes, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you're joining us in the world. Chris Dreyfus Gibson. My background is policing. I used to run police control rooms and emergency contact centres. That's what got me into this exciting world. I now am co-founder and vice chairman of the International Critical Control Rooms Alliance, which I will tell you all a little bit about a little bit later.
Thank you so much, Chris, for joining us today. Next, we have Kim Rasmussen, who's based in Denmark. Kim is the European Command and Control Business Development Manager. Hello, Kim.
Hi, Anna, and thank you. Great to be a part of this.
Thanks for being here. And Kim's colleague, Karen Stover, also from Samsung, is my fellow Canadian based in Toronto. Hi, Karen.
Hello, Anna. Thank you for having me here today.
And finally, last but not least, is my colleague who's sitting right behind this wall over here is Fadel Albayadi. He's VuWall's Vice President of Product Management. Hello, Fadel.
Hi, Anna. Thanks for having me.
Great to have everyone. So I think we're now ready to begin. So in today's webinar, we're going to talk about the next generation control rooms. And the idea is that you walk away with a clear idea of what the most critical considerations are in designing your next control room. So let's jump right into the agenda. Chris is going to kick us off with today's trends and challenges. He'll talk to us about the rise of data and how the emerging use of automation and AI is impacting control rooms and changing the role of control room operators. I will then hand it off to our experts from Samsung. They're going to help you understand the impact of display technology on control room operators, including market trends, the various display technologies available today, and how they are evolving. And then Fadel will dive into the management of all of this data, how to make it relevant, and how to design the most effective video wall management system for control rooms where operators can be most productive. So let's get started. We're going to start with ICCRA. I will pass it over to Chris, a longtime industry veteran, as you have heard, to talk to us about what everyone here is waiting for: data, AI, and visualization.
Thank you very much for having me. So let me just tell you very briefly a little bit about ICCRA. As I said before, I have run control rooms. It's a world that I sort of inhabit day to day now as a consultant advising organizations on how to better improve their control room operations. But in about 2017, set up ICCRA. We are, we think, the only global association that brings together professionals in the control room world, both from the user side and the supplier side, but importantly across all industries and sectors. And we're really about things like this, webinars and conferences, and sharing best practice and information, really to get the most excellent delivery of service that we can out of mission critical control rooms. So let's jump into the topic for today. And before we start, just wanted to really canvass some of your opinion on a very, very quick 30-second poll around what you see the biggest challenge in control rooms today. And hopefully your thoughts will chime with this presentation, but also the rest of the discussion in today's webinar. Okay, really interesting. So we're going to talk about data, but actually data impacts on all of these. And towards the end, I'm going to talk about the impact on people of data, and hopefully the 45% of you that talked about operator experience, that will chime with. Brilliant, thank you. You know, the world around us is changing, and technology moves at this ever increasing pace. We have just to look at the news around ChatGPT and generative AI, and that's the big thing that everyone wants to get into products. And I see that as I look at suppliers in this market. Suddenly everyone's releasing sort of something about AI, something GPT. And this evolution, this snowball of technology isn't going to change. And you just need to look at, I mean, this picture I found several years ago when I was preparing a conference speech. And for me, it encapsulates this increase in development. It's just over, maybe it's 22 years, I think now, since the smartphone came into our pockets. And all of the things in that picture now fit into a little device. And actually, I shouldn't really be talking about the smartphone anymore. Most of what's in that picture fits onto a watch type device now. So, we talk about connected devices, we talk about other robots taking over. But despite all of that, the role of the control room, the role of the mission critical control room stays the same. What is it there to do? We take information, we understand that information and what it means in our context. We make decisions, and then we take action, or we direct action to be taken. And that's true of every control room I visited. It's my sort of professional geeky hobby to go and visit control rooms around the world. And regardless of sector, regardless of the context that control room is operating in, that flow is the same. And that's manufacturing and process sort of control rooms, to emergency services, to utilities. That flow is fairly consistent. The context changes, the type of information that you're looking at changes, but the basic reason for the control room to exist is common. So all of this technology evolution results in this interconnectivity and this exponential rise in connected devices, and that these devices are the things that are producing the data more and more, whether that's building management systems or personal wearable devices. We're seeing this explosion of data. So the current estimate for this year is that we will produce 329 million terabytes of data, not for the year, every day. An enormous amount. And think of all the implications that has, storage and the ecology of storage, if you're and sustainability of storage, if you're into that. But this is data that is new data that's being copied, data that's being shared, huge amounts a day. And that's set to rise to 463 million terabytes by 2025. So we think that this is a lot of knowledge about a lot of things that surely must be useful to us in a control room context. Well, maybe. Because this massive data, or more accurately, probably a subset of all this data, could really revolutionize how control rooms deliver their operations. But it's not data that we're after. Data doesn't help us understand on its own. We need knowledge, we need insight. And if you think about the control room environment and the operations and that sort of fast-paced dynamic that's in a control room, operators just don't have the time to be processing and analyzing this overwhelming amount of data to draw the tiny bit of insight that they need at that particular moment in time for that particular thing that they are doing. If I think back to policing and public safety, we had some very skilled analysts that would produce these big sort of reports, intelligence reports, and they'd be circulated, but they'd be, 24, 48, maybe a week out of date because of the amount of effort it takes. So if we translate that to a control room, I just don't have the capacity and the time to do all that data analysis there and then. And really, that's the challenge that data poses. There is a lot of it. It must be useful in some way, but how do we drive insight? How do we make it useful in the moment that the operator needs it? And that's the challenge really for all suppliers that are working in the control room environment to try and find a solution to. So I'm not here, I'm afraid, to offer a solution, but what I think might be helpful to this conversation is to break down this challenge a little bit further, specifically in the control room context. So not all data is useful. We need to find the bit of data that's useful to answer the question that we want at a particular time in a particular context. And it can't be for the operator to trawl through, to do a search, even with the sort of ChatGPT mindset and typing a question. Control rooms tend to be too fast paced for that. So we need the systems, we need the technology to do that for us. And therefore the technology and the platforms that are being used need to have the awareness of what the operator is doing in the moment, and what they're working on, and the context and where they're at in the process. So that leads us to robots, right? Technology. And we really should let technology do the heavy lifting. Technology can do in seconds what it would take days or weeks for a human to do. Whether that's finding connections between data that seems unrelated, whether it's doing calculations, making suggestions. We talk about AI, but also just process automation, the sort of drudgery of stuff in the back to allow the operator to do the more critical, the more complex decision making in the process. And it isn't about replacing people, and that's been a lot of if you like, the worry about technology, especially when we talk about AI, but it's about augmenting capacity, it's about augmenting capability. I'll call it a vintage example of this for those that remember when Microsoft first started. Clippy, the little animated paperclip, would sit in the corner of the screen, and as you're typing or trying to do something, it's you want to bold this text, let me give you some advice on how you can do that. It understood the context that you were working in, and it offered you some advice. And that's the sort of concept we need to get to in control rooms. Insight and knowledge really isn't useful unless it's presented in a way that the operator can use it in that sort of heat of battle. Now, the context that you're in, the sector that you're in, will define how faster paced operations happen. But generally, the control room is the hub of your operations in a mission critical environment. It is really quite a fast turnover of activity. So it's about presenting the right information to the right operator, the right person at the right time. And it needs to be presented in a way that is accessible, but not intrusive. So an operator could say, that's really interesting, but actually I've done that, or I know that already, or it's not relevant to what I'm doing and I can dismiss it. Or they could say, actually, that's really useful. Let me delve deeper. Let me find out more. What we don't want is this mass of, a 20-page Word document that's been generated to be presented to an operator. It's got to be consumable. And that means that as much as the problem is a technology one of how do we process and treat data and draw insight really quickly, it's also a people problem. And in the poll at the beginning, quite a lot of you talked about the operator experience, the ease of usability of solutions. And that's kind of what all this comes down to. I sort of need operators that are skilled in a slightly different way, perhaps, than 20, 30 years ago, because we're dealing less with big flashing sort of industrial light boards. We're dealing less with voice and more with visual data and more with making connections quickly. So perhaps that's a different skill set that we need to train. Perhaps we need to select operators differently. One client that I work with, they've started to to gamify their recruitment process. So they want people to be able to interact with technology in the same way that my children are too young, but perhaps older children and young people interact with video games. Very fast-paced, consuming information, visual information quickly, making decisions. And really, if you're in World of Warcraft, whatever it is, you're in a control room, right? You are taking information, understanding it, making decisions, taking action. And so actually that recruitment process might look slightly different in the future. The other point about people is an ethics question. So when we start to talk about automation, when we start to talk about AI, there is a discussion to be had, an important discussion around what is the level we are comfortable with in automating a process. And that's going to be different depending on the sector that you work in. So in public safety, where perhaps incidents or response to incidents are a matter of life and death, that threshold is relatively low. I want a human to make decisions around, do I send armed assets? Do I take this particular type of action? In the context of a different sector, then actually we might be happy with a much higher level of automation. Perhaps if it's road transport, for example, and I need to reroute a bus or something. But that discussion is a really important one to have, because as much as we need to take our operators with us on this journey, we also need to take the customer, the end customer, with us as well. And so that's pretty critical. So before I finish, really, 2 more questions for you. Another quick poll. I think we have 60 seconds on the clock this time. When were you last in a control room? And what's your primary consideration in control room design? Really interested to hear your thoughts on that. Goodness, really interesting. Look at that. And then question 2, technology integration. Right, okay. So really interesting results. So the reason I asked that first one is, in order to solve this problem, we need to understand the environment, and there is no better way than actually being in amongst it and on the front line, if you like.
So Chris, when was the last time you found yourself in a control room?
So only a few weeks ago. So I would take that first box, an airport control room, and it's one of the activities that we have at ICCRA, mainly at our annual conference, is to organise control room visits, because it is really such a crucial thing. I think especially if you're a supplier to the control room market, visiting customers, but also visiting the breadth, because whilst I've said control rooms are all, they do the same process, the context is important, right? The industry is important. So I find it fascinating just going to, like I said before, my geeky hobby of going to visit different control rooms.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Chris. I'm going to let you take it away with your final quote.
Fantastic. So those observant of you will have noticed the photo of the Starship Enterprise bridge in my first slide, and here's a quote from Jean-Luc Picard. But I think this is a really important problem, right? How do we deal with data? How do we make it useful? How do we really transform the way control rooms operate and deliver their service? And it's not a problem that's going to go away. We have more and more devices. The next thing will come after generative AI and ChatGPT. There will be something else. And so we need to start figuring out the solution for this. And as the quote says, things are only impossible until they're not. There is a solution, and I've started to see the seeds of that as I talk to suppliers. So I hope this has been an interesting set of observations and very happy to take questions in the, if you sort of pop them in the Q&A part of Zoom.
Thank you so much,
Thank
Chris.
you.
On our next slide is where we begin the next couple of sections. So now that we've established what the challenges are and we understand the impact that they have on control room operators, Samsung and VuWall will cover off the next two sections with some great guidance about solving those challenges. So I will pass it over to Samsung, to the Samsung team, and to get us started, Karen, I'm going to hand it over to you.
Thank you, Anna. You know, Chris mentioned earlier, control rooms have acted as these critical information hubs for so many organizations around the globe. And that crucial element of any properly functioning control room, we know has to be around the latest display technology. Monitoring so much variety of information and those streams that are coming through efficiently, those decision makers, they need to be equipped with crisp and clear information. And that delivery has to be fail-proof, ensuring that the delivery is the best optimal outcome for that user experience. Being critical in that any display operates without zero downtime and providing that reliable and operational efficiency can make all the difference in a successful mission-critical environment. There are so many display technology available to you today, so many choices. And selecting the right display solution is as much a part of the critical decision-making as operating the actual control room itself. Samsung's global presence and support capabilities you see here invest billions into R&D, and providing you with that peace of mind, I like to refer to it as an insurance policy. Pretty much your investment's guaranteed. The control room market is growing at such a fast pace, valued at almost $9 billion US in 2020, and a projected growth to hit almost 15 billion by 2027. This is outstanding. And where's that display technology headed with this level of growth? You'll see here the narrow pixel pitch is beginning to definitely dominate the market share in control room designs, with over 77% of that display technology market share. Rear projection cubes, otherwise known as RPC, those sales numbers, they're continuing to decline in this space, which means we are going to see more retrofits in the coming years that we suspect clients are going to begin to upgrade their spaces to micro LED. Higher resolution LED displays are definitely contributing to this growth, and we're seeing it more and more. The revenue's increasing, and this is all driving that shift towards LED. It will replace rear projection cubes, with LCD and LED continuing to coexist. We can see here that the largest revenue is in that 1 to 1.49 millimeter pixel pitch, and the sub 1 mil is definitely gaining some traction. The market growth, though, of almost 10%, it tells us that LED will broadly replace rear projection cubes, leading the way for future control rooms. Technology requirements, they definitely vary depending on your budget, your scalability, and your workflow. As Chris alluded to earlier, historically, the role of the control room remains the same, but the data we're visualizing is rapidly evolving. These do form the building blocks for your control room design, and Samsung offers those turnkey displays for any application, both inside and outside of your control room. Historically, though, rear projection cubes and LCD video walls were always known for those vicious seams. The trends and must-haves we see today are definitely transitioning design considerations into that true seamless viewing experience, pairing with zero downtime and full redundancy for both data and power. Meeting industry standards like TÜV certification basically ensures the operator's safety is greatly improved. HDR standard, otherwise known as high dynamic frame rates, they've allowed us to increase brightness levels and contrast to the library of data that is being visualized. What does that really mean? The ability to color match what is displayed on the overview wall, along with what is being displayed at that individual operator workstation, ensures that consistent visual experience with zero compromise on integrity or the accuracy of the visual. One of the trends we do see in the control room space is that these transitions to higher brightness and more ambient light versus what was deemed in the past to be lower ambient lighting environments. LED allows us to bring in this higher brightness and higher ambient conditions, and even those conditions that can change given the time of day. So it's really important that the displays adapt without sacrificing the viewing content, even when those lighting and conditions are being dimmed to lower brightness levels. Now I'm going to hand it over to Kim, who's going to touch on micro LED.
Thank you, Karen. Let's look a little deeper into what the VuWall micro LED brings of benefits to the operator. As Chris says, is being overwhelmed with a large amount of data, and sometimes in a fast-paced environment. The contrast on the VuWall micro LED is amazing 24,000 to 1, and this ensures the highest details in the pictures, so the operator can take faster decision and reducing the risk of taking a wrong decision. The VuWall has a high color accuracy, so there are no doubt about the colors on alarms or on colors of example cars on the road from a camera signal. The VuWall can be adjusted to any brightness without any color disturbance, and this reduces the operator fatigue and gives a better working environment. At the graphic of the control room, you can see that we have a viewing angle on 170 degrees. All operators will have a perfect picture. This will never be possible with rear projection cubes that only has a viewing angle of maximum 70 degrees. For us at Samsung, it has always been important to display the content on the screen as is intended to be perceived. To do this, the VuWall micro LED is really the best technology choice on the market. Let's look into the Samsung offerings on micro LED products. Samsung has 3 micro LED lined up for control rooms. The first 2 are flexible module-based that are easy to assemble to make up a custom mold size in various pixel pictures. One of the emerging trends we see today is that the simplification of LEDs packing and installation. And one of the latest innovations in the micro LED is the LED all-in-one packages. Here's an example of how these all-in-ones are mounted on the wall. Step 1 is to attach the 4 wall brackets to the wall. Step 2 is to hang the 2 back plates on the wall brackets. And step 3 is to slide 3 or 4 preset modules on the back plates. And the step 4 is to connect the power to mains, the signal cables to the VuWall video processing system. If you want more modules built together, we have a special side kit that makes seamless connection between the 2 screens or even more screens. One last thing, maybe you have already noticed how slim it is. The depth is only 49 millimeter. When you compare it with a typical 70-inch rear projection cubes, that is 900 millimeters, you will see there will be much more space accessible for operators in your control room setup if you choose the VuWall micro LED solution. Let's look at a conclusion. We have addressed the pain points and must-have in the control room space today. Regardless of the size of the control room, we understand the importance of visualization, and the choices of display technologies available must align with the one common goal to ensure the best operator and user experience. The growth in the control room space is significant and compelling, as Samsung is continuing to lead the changes in innovative display technologies, in particular micro LED, to accommodate the growing demands in the control room market. Thank you, and now back to you, Anna.
Thank you so much, Kim. I do have one question before we move on, though. You've been working in control room market for several years now, Kim, and you've seen the evolution, but what would you say is the key factor in evaluating the ROI when selecting display technology for control room projects today?
I think the key factor is about the operator and the operator environment, as we also saw in the feedback on the first poll, as Chris said. We need to ensure we offer the best possible display quality, so operator fatigue and mistakes are reduced. We often see operators sitting in front of a screen 6 to 8 hours a day, years after years. And one of the ways to keep these people is actually to secure a good working environment. And this includes includes a good quality display solution. So,
Absolutely, that makes a lot of sense. Thank you, Kim. Next, we have the final section of the webinar where we're going to cover off video wall management and AV distribution technology and what it takes to get the most out of the incredible display technology available today that Samsung just showed us to create the best visualization experience for control room operators. And I was happy to see that during the polls, people's primary considerations is technology integration and also the operator experience and ease of use. So this section is going to address both of those concerns that the majority of today's audience has. So that's excellent. So I'm going to do a quick introduction about VuWall for those of you who don't know us. We develop solutions to easily and effectively distribute and manage any visual content on all display surfaces and video walls throughout facilities. So our solutions provide advanced video wall management, KVM management, and also AV distribution to route any source to any display, all from a single easy-to-use platform. We have 3 main offices. Our Canadian headquarters is where I'm located over here. We do our software development. It all happens here. Our European office in Germany is where our production and manufacturing facilities are, and our new office in the US, very exciting, it's in Atlanta, and this is gearing up to be an experience center. So we provide technical support globally and have other sales offices throughout the world. And as you can see over here, we have well over 5,000 installations in over 45 countries in the world, and companies big and small, but we are also in many Fortune 500 control rooms and government agencies all around the world. So now that you know who we are, I will pass it over to Fadel to start us off with a typical control room use case.
Thank you, Anna. This is the type of environment where you would encounter the widest range of operational and performance requirements when it comes to AV distribution, video wall, and KVM management. As you see in the top left corner of your screen, visualization in a control room goes beyond just the main control room area. What's really critical is to take all the requirements of all the individual rooms, not only take that into consideration, but to actually take all the collective and collaborative requirements into consideration as well, when all the rooms combined form one big single cohesive ecosystem. As Chris said earlier, the data that's ever increasing that you want to share and visualize, what's really, really important is that you want to show the right information to the right person at the right time in the right place. To do that, you will need one software platform that meets the requirements of all the rooms put together. And I'll walk you now through a workflow diagram that shows that. The reason we're showing this workflow today is because of all the designers and engineers that are on this webinar today. We believe it will speak to them. On the left-hand side, you see a collection, a mixture of sources of different standards, formats, and codecs. They could be coming from IP cameras, hardware encoders, software encoders, application servers running applications, dashboards, web browsers, and RSS feeds, and of course, KVM sources. On the right-hand side, you see a mixture of destinations driven by single-channel decoders, multi-view decoders, video wall controllers, and video wall processing nodes. In the middle, you see a centralized management software that's managing your entire facility. All sources, all destinations managed by one single interface. That software, of course, like we said earlier, has to take all the requirements into consideration, but it also has to take into consideration the rights of every single operator. For example, a particular KVM operator may have the right to control the keyboard and mouse of a particular source, while another operator may not have that same luxury. I want to draw your attention to the bottom right corner of your screen, the light green area where it says VPN. The software that you use to manage your facility should not only allow you to manage your facility locally, but also remotely. Why, you may ask? Because that gives even greater flexibility to the operators to collaborate together, no matter their physical location. Whether it's sharing content room to room, operator to operator, or operator to video wall, the software that you choose in your next design is one of the most important decisions that you will take. In this slide, on the left-hand side, you see VuWall's award-winning centralized management software or platform called TRX. It allows and provides intuitive drag-and-drop operations for all your scenarios. On the right-hand side, you see what we call the Control Panel Designer feature. It is a feature built in directly inside the TRX software. It allows administrators to create custom control panels per operator. And that means the operator has the flexibility to use the complete TRX user interface and or simplify their life even further by looking at using the control panel that they have designed for themselves. Both the TRX interface and the control panel designer feature can be used without writing a single line of code. No programming required whatsoever. Unfortunately, in the interest of time today, we don't have the time to show you a full demo, but if you want a demo of TRX, the control panel designer feature, or anything else from VuWall, please visit us at vuwall.com/demo. To summarize, I want to leave you with this. If you decide to use VuWall's technology in the next control room project, there are really three main ingredients or components that you need to remember. On the left-hand side, it's VuWall's range of IP encoders or IP KVM encoders called VuStream. Encoders allow you to take sources, keyboard, mouse, and other data and place them on the network, be it 1G or 10G networks. On the right-hand side, you see VuWall's range of video wall processing and KVM processing nodes called PAK. PAK allow you to build KVM operator stations or video walls of any size by stitching multiple PAK units together. In the middle, you see the centralized management platform or software that we talked about earlier called TRX. It allows you to manage your facility from one single interface. What's really important in this slide is to say that TRX is interoperable. It's based on an open architecture. What that really means is that you are not limited to use VuWall's range of encoders. You can use third-party hardware and or software encoders, have it seen, configured, and managed by that same TRX interface. TRX is what allows operators to see the relevant information to the right person at the right time so that they can make the best and most efficient decision as quickly as possible. To summarize this section, I will now hand it back over to Anna.
Thank you so much, Fadel. I think you really hit it on the nose. That's what we've been talking about, right? Chris alluded to that. So getting the right information to the right person at the right time. So on the next slide, I just wanted to highlight this. We're not going to go through these, of course, but the idea is to simplify things for our partners, our customers, and our consultants. So VuWall partnered with Samsung to develop a really simple approach to designing control rooms. So we've put together what we like to call a control room solution bundle. And the goal is really to give our partners some peace of mind from two trusted brands that have been tested and validated together, so that work together seamlessly in the most demanding environment. So we have a brochure on this that you'll find up at the URL on your screen. And of course, one of our account managers will be able to tell you more, but I'm here just to show you that there is an easy way to get started with a quality solution that is also very scalable. So if you'd like a demo, like Fadel said, you can get a demo at vuwall.com/demo. And we have a great demo set up here in Montreal and in Germany that we can do all over the world anytime. And you can do it right from your office. So to conclude today's presentation, just a couple more things, another minute before we jump into our Q&A. So a few final takeaways. So if you walk away with nothing else today, walk away with this. So if you're looking for a video wall solution in a control room, there are 4 key considerations that you shouldn't settle for. So the first one is interoperable and scalable by design. You want to look for a system that is compatible with both legacy systems, but can also easily be integrated with any new and evolving technology that you may not even know about yet. So this will address the future-proofing concern that many of you expressed earlier. And as we all know, control rooms demand reliable, high-performance solutions. You want to look for a proven solution that is optimized for demanding 24/7 environments that cannot afford any downtime. Third is the importance of a single and centralized and flexible platform that can address all of your visualization needs, not only those in the main control room, but also those in all the auxiliary rooms throughout the facility. And finally, consider a solution that is easy to deploy in AV over IP environments. So a solution that is interoperable, scalable, and intuitive, and will require less integration time, which will in turn offer less risk, which will result in lower costs and a higher ROI. So I'd like to invite all of you to visit us in one of our showrooms. Samsung, of course, has many showrooms globally throughout Europe, Canada, and the US. And we at VuWall have recently expanded and upgraded our experience center here in Montreal, as well as in Germany. And in fact, Samsung Canada is in the process of installing the Samsung's micro LED, the wall, right down the hall in our Montreal facility. So that's very exciting. That'll be up and running in a matter of a couple of days. And we are also very well equipped for online demos for those of you who can't make it out to see us. And finally, with Infocom around the corner, I'd like to invite you to visit our booth where we will have Samsung displays and a mini control room setup that we've recreated on the show floor. And Samsung will, of course, have a booth at Infocom just down the hall from us as well. And that brings us to the end. I will leave this slide up just for a couple minutes so that you can jot down any contact information that you may need. So lastly, before we start our Q&A, I want to thank all of our panelists. It has been an honor to have you all here today. So let's jump into the Q&A. And I would like to introduce joining us special guest just for the Q&A, Mitch Stein. He's the Director of Business Development for LED for Samsung Canada. So thank you, Mitch. He's here to address some of your questions. There are many questions here for LED. So I'm going to get started with our first question up here. Eddie says, the question is for Chris. So Chris talked about displaying data, and I'm wondering about KVM being able to control a remote machine. So what is the percentage of control room where remote controlling of computer is involved versus the number of rooms where displaying only is enough? So I'm not sure you can answer that precisely, but I'm going to let you give it a shot from your observation.
I certainly can't give you a percentage, and I'm sure there's sort of marketing sort of analysis around the control room spend on KVM versus other technologies. What I would say anecdotally, and it links with that last poll question around people's considerations and the need for integration, is that I tend to see KVM a lot more in control rooms that have legacy technology. Right, so as technology develops, integration is one of the key elements of newer, more modern products, right? And so it's easier to have everything on one display, everything in one platform that I need. And so again, it's a generalization, but what I tend to see is KVM technology being used to get over that integration problem. Or, and I've not been in many where this is the case, where the control room is dealing with various things that are unrelated. So they're the control room for an organization, but they might have a number of tasks that are not related, and so the technologies are different, but it's the same operator that's dealing with the 2 or 3 different areas. So I'm afraid, yeah, not a precise percentage question.
Yeah, we've noticed a large demand in KVM technology as well, and we've put in a lot of development efforts this year into that and making the use of KVM technology a lot more collaborative within the control room. This is something we will be showing and announcing at Infocom, and so definitely because of a demand in the market, we've put a lot of R&D into KVM technology this year. So the next question is for my friends at Samsung. How LED can ensure having redundancy on the light source? I'm not an expert. I don't think I understand that question. Mitch, we haven't heard from you yet. Would you like to grab that or pass that over to Kim?
I'll take it. So it's a great question. So as many of you know, the LEDs, the LED technology is based on lighting up a diode that produces the image. So those diodes can burn and they can extinguish from lighting up, but that is possible. Although when those happen, it's really not a distraction of any kind in the control room because they're so small, micro in size, that it's very often not noticeable unless a series of them have extinguished. So generally what we're looking for there is to build redundancy around the signal and the power, which is the most important parts of keeping the wall going. And as diodes fail or need to be replaced, that there is a very straightforward process in order to do that. And it's generally a swap, a repair, and then back into the spares pool it goes. So generally that's how we deal with those situations.
Thank you, Mitch. I'll pass this one over to Kim next. So what is the minimum viewing distance for the micro LED?
Normally we say that like 0.8 millimeter, that's 1.6 meter. So what we actually do is that we take the pixel pitch, multiply with 2 and put meter in the back. But it's like a general rule. We could also say it's 215 times the font size of the letter or of the number. So it's really about the content. And this is where we often say, let's go to our showroom, bring your content and try it on different pixel pitches, because maybe you don't need so fine a pixel pitch that you think, but we can test that in our showroom. So that's what we recommend.
Sounds like you've got your formulas all worked out, so it really needs to be on a case-by-case basis, depending on what we're looking at. Thank you, Kim. Another question, I think, for you, Mitch. So when it comes to power consumption and heat dissipation, how do you compare LED with other technologies?
So in general, the power consumption of LED is, in most cases, if you're comparing a micro LED to a surface mount diode, which is more the traditional LED we've been seeing in the marketplace, there's roughly about a 30% power savings between the traditional LEDs of the past and the current newer technologies in micro. So those are the main differences, and obviously the greener the better. So in a short answer, that's probably the best way to describe it.
Thank you. I think that this next question, Chris, is for you. I'm going to ask you to do your best. So analyzing and creating data indicators for operators to act on using AI will take place in the cloud. However, critical control rooms are usually isolated from the internet. Therefore, how will critical control rooms take use, or I guess take advantage of AI and cloud in the future?
Yeah, that's a really good question. Absolutely right. I think if you want to make use of AI and the technologies, I mean, the AI is a very all-encompassing word, but technologies that do stuff really quickly and that have the capacity and the capabilities, then absolutely we're talking about cloud. What I would say is I've been to very few control rooms actually that are isolated from the internet, and that includes in public safety and the security environment. There are some, of course, that are. What I would say is that often it's for two reasons. Clearly, security is one of them, and the cyber concerns, and that very much depends on their organizational setup and the protections that they have. But also, it can be to do with just not having operators on the internet as they're working, right? And that as well. So there is a lot of, even if you are connected externally as a control room, there is still a lot of education to be done around cloud and what cloud means, what it means in terms of security, what it means in terms of redundancy. We have seen in the UK and certainly in the States as well, that mission critical applications are being run on cloud. They are applications that tend to be designed for cloud and therefore have the security wraparound. And cloud providers continue to update their security as well. So I don't think it'll be long before that becomes a lot more common.
Thank you, Chris. Kim, I think the next one is for you. LED video wall versus LFD video wall. What are the advantages and disadvantages of each of those? Briefly.
Yeah, of course. That's I have several advantages. Well, one of them, first of all, is a lifetime. We have 150,000 hours lifetime on the wall, where we have about 30,000 hours lifetime of LFD video wall. Then it's the contrast. We have much higher contrast on the micro LED. And as of course you all know, we don't have any black gaps seams in between the modules on micro LED. So this is really where the big difference. So on the cost side, well, if you compare on the same amount of year, I will say it's cheaper to buy the micro LED because you have a much longer lifetime. You don't need to be calibrated. You don't need to change panels, etc. So that was the short answer. So.
Thank you, Kim. If you want a more detailed answer, you can always write to Kim directly. So another one for you, Kim. Does image retention affect the micro LED?
No, it does not. So that's a simple question. So we have every little pixel is its own LED, so we don't see that. That's only on other display technologies.
Thank you. Fadel, I think this one is for you. So what display, or maybe not, what display hardware and software elements are required to position display inputs from different sources?
So if I understand the question correctly, I believe they mean what components do you need to basically display or visualize a source. So depending on the source type, if it's already IP, you need a decoder at the endpoint to decode it and then display it onto the screen. Otherwise, if it's a physical source, then you would need an encoder to transmit it, put it on the network, and then on the endpoint, you would also have a decoder to display it further.
Thank you. Chris, I have another one for you. You're popular today. What is a very simple differentiation between AI and multiple algorithms as used in video analytics that are already being used extensively in security and traffic control rooms? Needs to be simple for me to follow.
Okay. So I think that the question boils down to what is AI. Algorithms are definitely part of AI. They form the basis of AI models, but I think it's a scaled, if I explain it that way. So you've got bits of automation, probably simple process automation at the bottom, AI towards the top, algorithms are along that path. I think the difference is that when we talk about AI, and again, there isn't one technology that is AI, it's a concept. But as we build AI models, it's about it's not just about following the algorithm, but it's about continuous learning. It's about self-correction. It is about creativity as well. And all of those elements that try and mimic human cognition, really. So hopefully that sort of explains it simple enough, but it's a progression from simple algorithms. Yeah.
Thank you so much. I have one for Mitch here. So Mitch, what is the best ventilation method for Samsung video walls?
In most cases, the walls can be conventionally cooled in the room because they don't emit a lot of heat, but in some cases, there will be considerations for HVAC and those types of things. So generally it's, they're cooled by just the HVAC systems in the room, unless there are some mitigating circumstances where we need additional cooling. But they are pretty cool when they run and very efficient energy-wise.
Thank you. The next one, Fadel, I'm going to ask you. So how smooth is the integration of encoders attached to the system with TRX server and VuWall video wall controllers?
It's very smooth. We spend a lot of time making it very, very easy to deploy our software platform. So depending on the type of codec, there's different sort of integration or configuration in the beginning, but once it's set up, it's very, very easy to use and create all your scenarios for your project.
Thank you. Another one for the Samsung team. I'll pass this over to Kim. So what is the minimum size possible for today for a 1920 by 1080 resolution in LED technology?
That's our 55-inch in 0.63 pixel pitch. So that's exactly 1920 by 1080, and it will be a perfect replacement of a VuWall. So,
thank you, Fadel. A great question for you. So, is there a known workplace example where you've incorporated the VuWall TRX with a legacy Crestron transmitter scalers, HD base T, or Crestron DM?
I can't think of one on top of my head, but the answer is yes. We are used a lot with Crestron in a lot of different projects. We leave it up to the integrators and our partners to create sort of a Crestron module that bridges the gap between Crestron and VuWall to make that seamless.
And I have been at customer on-sites and have seen that integration myself. So 100% there are cases for that. So I think I'm going to leave off now. So I want to thank everybody for joining us, our panelists especially, all of our attendees, and I want to wish everybody a great day, a great evening, a great night, wherever you are. Thank you for joining us today.